Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honablew Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. I am William Honablew Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the host of the BlackUSA.news morning show. Good morning to you. Wait, something strange about today. Seems like I should be remembering something about... It's Titillating Tuesday! Titillating Tuesday! Oh, yeah, no, it's one of my favorite days of the week because we get to talk about stuff that isn't part of our normal conversation, but it needs to be in the Black community. Today, as always, I have my co-host, Stacey Dennis, the amazing Stacey Dennis, a subject matter expert when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, particularly in the Black community, particularly in urban settings. Oh my God. Y'all are going to get titillated today as only Ms. Dennis can do. But first, we always got to talk about some important stuff as we open it all up. Oh, good morning, Quandra. How you doing this morning? Let's see, there was some stuff we need to talk about. Oh, we got to start off talking about Breadcoin. Breadcoin is an organization that takes your donations and then puts value to this alternative payment system that they've created. They've minted these coins, these Breadcoin. And what happens is that each Breadcoin gets its value based on the donations that are in. So right now, each Breadcoin is worth about $2.50. And so what happens is that these Breadcoin are distributed through a network of providers who are already working with people who may be dealing with food insecurity, who may live in starvation zones, who may be homeless, or whatever their circumstances are. So they provide these Breadcoins through this existing network, and then guess what? The individual can take the Breadcoin, go to a participating restaurant or caterer, and get food. They are able to have their nutrition needs met without having to sacrifice their dignity for it. We really appreciate opportunities to work with organizations who understand that treating people, giving people things, or helping them is not as valuable if you take their humanity or their dignity as a cost. So we are really happy to partner with an organization that really does understand the need to be in the community and to help people where they need it, not just to make themselves look good, but to really offer help and hope. Let's see. Oh, I always got to tell y'all about Darker Than Blue, 413 North Charles Street. It is an amazing restaurant. And I always recommend you get that Cowboy Prime Rib. It'll change your life. It will change it. But in addition to having great food and a great staff, they have a really great commitment to the Black community and to the work that gets done. You can see them often sponsoring events and things like that. Again, we need to make sure that we support those who support us. Let's see. Oh, we got to give it big ups to the founder of Be More News and BlackUSA.news, Donnie Glover. He wrote a book called I Am Black Wall Street. It is different than other scholarship on Black Wall Street. What he does is he takes a look at how Black people actually got to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and where other Black Wall Streets sprouted along the way of their journey. He talks a lot about the relationship between Native Americans or indigenous people in Florida and their movement and partnership with Black people as they moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's a really wonderful look at a different perspective on how the importance of Black Wall Street. And it also kind of acts as a guide on how we can do our own Black Wall Street and how we can partner with others so that we can achieve the same thing now. I wanted to make sure that you all remember that Maryland is still in an election cycle. During the primary election, I think it said less than 30% of the people who are eligible to vote showed up. That's not a great statistic because our needs require 100% engagement and involvement. But the general election is coming up. So what I would encourage you all to do is to continue to follow Black USA News for our ongoing election coverage. Not only do we give you commentary from our hosts and other people, we also do interviews with candidates themselves, making sure, again, that you have accurate information upon which to make your decisions. Good morning, Michael. What's going on, sir? See, before we head, is that all I wanted to tell you about? Yeah, I think it is. You know what that means? It's time to get titillated. Bringing to the stage the chief titillating officer of the morning show, Miss Stacey Dennis. Hey, how you doing, the CTA?
Good morning. I did not. Y'all have not done your job in giving him a new name for me.
It's not that they haven't done their job. They like it.
You have not helped me. I can't.
See, you know what? You can't even blame me or them. It's your fault for being so damn titillating. I'm gonna put the blame on you. That's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna put the blame.
Terrible. That's so terrible. As you can see, I'm back in Maryland.
You're back in Maryland. That's what I'm about to ask you. Let the people know, because you jet setting across the country and stuff like that. I'm surprised you ain't stopped by London on the way back or nothing like that. So I thought when I saw you this morning, I thought you were on the beach. I was like, that seemed like something you would do. So how was the trip out?
Hold on, securing my date for this morning. Anyway, the trip was fantastic. I went to Houston to assist my best friend Tina Johnson, a graduate of the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, class of '91. She has a business called this is why I'm tired. She has a business in quilting, and she did a retreat this weekend. And I am blanking on her business. I've been saying it all week. My God, she's gonna kill me.
No.
I've been saying it all week. I'm exhausted.
But wait. I got your back on this one. So you know what, Tina, I got Tina back on her building her business and expanding her brand. And see, you hooked us up, so that gives you a whole pass. You know what I'm saying? You can use my credit on this one.
When I tell you, I am like exhausted, tenderly stitched. My God.
There it is, tenderly stitched. Yo,
God!
Wait. We need to holler at her, because tenderly stitched could be a sponsor of Titillating Tuesday. You see all the T's? Tenderly stitched on Titillating Tuesday. Oh my
God. She is amazingly talented. She's ridiculously talented in creating. And at first I'm like, okay, so you do quilts, which in itself is amazing. And these quilts are just creative, and the fabrics used are ridiculous, and she can make a quilt out of anything. You have your husband's old ties, she can make an entire quilt out of it, or a runner for your table. You have your kids' t-shirts from all of the sports they played, and you don't want to throw them out, but you want to do something with it. Give it to her. She will make a t-shirt quilt. I saw the one she was doing for a friend. Oh my God, so fabulous. So what she does is she has these retreats where beginners and experts can just chill at this fantastic location all week and quilt. And you're like, all you doing is quilting. You have it. First of all, they're eating and drinking. I'm surprised all of my stitches turned out even remotely straight. I'm like, is it straight? Is it straight? They're playing music. They're having a good time. These women, they were women from in their 30s, clear up into their 70s. And they were dancing, doing the butt by EU.
Wait, don't.
Right. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be quilting? She was like, doing the butt with a drink. I'm like, I've got Where has these been all my life? This is awesome.
Yo, how you had a quilting bee and it just popped off, y'all?
I haven't been able to get out into a club since before COVID. These ladies, what are we doing? Okay, so it was amazing. Food and drink was included. They had sleeping accommodations, which are comfortable, big rooms, and she did it. She did it. Wow. She has it 4 times a year. The next one is in November, followed by March. If you are even remotely interested, and you should be, it's a wonderful tradition of quilting in the country and a fantastic tradition of quilting within the African American community. She's in Houston, Texas. We've had people fly in from California and Florida and then me from Maryland to go to this retreat, let alone the people that live in Texas. I'm telling you, you'll have a ball.
Wait, watch this. Guess who just texted me while we're talking?
Did she really?
She did. I was like, we talking about you right now.
Yeah, she can't see this episode though. She'd be like, did she forget my name? Like,
no,
I've been saying it all week.
Covered that. You know what we do?
But wait a minute. I was doing her social
clips.
media. I was doing her social media. I've been doing videos for her all week. When I tell you, I'm still asleep.
We'll clip this out and send it to her. We'll clip that part out. We'll go in and we'll post production. We'll take care of it in post production. There it is.
Thank you.
There it is. We'll take care of it in post production. All right. So big ups to Tina. And you know what's really interesting? I was thinking about this. You spent the last weekend quilting, and one of the big things that one of our topics today covers, and how it rose to prominence. We talk about HIV and AIDS, and the AIDS quilt was to your point, was one of the more unifying unifying activities or projects that really transformed and made the HIV and AIDS epidemic personal for a lot of people, because they realized that they weren't alone in it. When you start seeing these patches of quilt, everybody contributing, like, this is my loved one, or this is my experience, and it comes together, you see what ends up being this incredible tapestry of the human experience in the context of this disease. So I was like, oh, look at you, go ahead, woohoo, segue. Okay, I got it.
They had one there at the quilt retreat. A lady was a survivor of breast cancer, and so she made a breast cancer quilt. And it was just her experience and her fight, and immortalized in this beautiful quilt. I'll see if I can give you a picture. Maybe you could put it on the post. But she did a fantastic job. It was so sick. I was sitting there like, how did you do this?
Actually, you know what we're going to do? This is what we're going to do. We're going to have just Tina come in and get some of the footage that you already had. We're going to do a whole show about the quilting. That's what we're going to do. Because honestly, it sounds less about, real talk for me, it is less about the quilting itself, like the product. It sounds like more the experience and the opportunity and the focus and the ability to explore your creativity. So we're gonna bring her. We're gonna bring Tina's whole ass on here. We're gonna bring her own ass, sit her right down. Now I don't know if she can. I don't know. Well, I know Tina ready for Titillating Tuesday, but I don't know if we're gonna be talking about that. So we might put her on a different day so we could talk about stuff. Yeah. Because honestly, I want to talk about her with Titillating Tuesdays. I want to talk to her about that on a Wednesday. I'm gonna tell you the truth right now. I remember some of the conversations.
I don't know. In her real life, Tenderly Stitched is part of her real life, but she's also an oil lady. Don't get it twisted. This is a oil baroness. She rips oil out of the earth for oil companies. She's beastly. This is my friend. Apparently, we studied 2 different subjects at Poly. I obviously was not paying enough attention. Whereas she was.
Oh my God. So all right. More serious topic. We still gonna have fun though. I don't even know why I try to make a transition on that. We spent the last 2 weeks talking about sexually transmitted infections and what they're like and their impact on the community,
in this country, yes,
and stuff like that. Let's see. Do we have the data that we were using before? Do we have it? Nope, I don't have it just yet. Give me a second. That's interesting. Well, we don't have I don't have it right now, but I know that you are the maven of data when it comes, especially sexually transmitted infections in the greater Baltimore area. So I did tell us about HIV in Maryland, or HIV in general. Let's start there.
So HIV is a retrovirus, and I know people like a what? It's a virus, right? So the whole point of a virus is to get into your cells. Well, for HIV specifically, is to get into your cells, specifically your CD4 cells, your immune cells, the cells that protect you from infection. The cells that protect you whenever someone coughs or sneezes in your general direction. The cells that protect you whenever you come up against something that has a bacteria or a virus on it. It attacks those cells. It likes those cells, and it gets inside those cells, and it stops it from making machinery and parts for itself, and tricks it into making machinery and parts for HIV. It is a terribly brilliant virus. So just imagine your Navy, your Army, your Air Force, Marines, and someone attacking it, and then looking at you like, what you gonna do? That is HIV.
It sounds a little bit more like they don't just attack the military; they attack the Joint Chiefs. Like
Yeah.
and then they say, "Hey, now we're the Joint Chiefs, so military, do our stuff."
Right. It is
Okay.
exactly right. It comes in with its RNA. It gets into your cells, and it's like
RNA. I thought there was only DNA.
Yeah, no. It comes in with its
Jerry
RNA.
Springer and Maury Povich ain't never said nothing about no RNA. What you bringing up all new NAs? What are we doing?
Sorry, I will not get too into the science, but you go into the cell, and it comes in with its RNA and tricks it into making DNA, which is what our cells make. Our cells make DNA.
Mhm.
And so it gets into that. First of all, getting into the cell is a thing, and then tricking it to making its DNA from its RNA, and then getting into our nucleus. And then all of a sudden it makes our cells mistakenly make all of these baby HIVs. It makes so many of these baby HIVs, it bursts, kills the cell, and goes and finds other cells to do the same thing. That is how your immune system drops, because as the virus replicates, it is killing off your defense every time it does it. So for people who are living with HIV, they will want to know their viral load, which is how many times that virus has had a chance to do that process, to copy itself.
HIV virus?
The HIV virus.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to want to know their CD4 count. How many of my cells are left?
And the CD4s those are the cells that coordinate and builds all the machinery to keep viruses out.
Those are the cells those are your immune cells.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the cells that are responsible for your defense. And this is why when I had a patient in the clinic, looked fine, looked great. She was perfect picture of health. But when I took her blood, her CD4 count was a 4. You should have at least,
whoa,
yeah, anything below 200 is AIDS defined. We're looking at, we want you to have at least 250, but 400 to 800 is about normal. This lady had 4. So as I'm looking at the screen, looking at her numbers, I get a mask and I put it on me.
Oh, because you don't want to catch HIV. You don't want to catch HIV. That's why you put on the mask.
No, I'm a danger to her. I am a danger to her.
Say it again. Yeah.
I put the mask on me because in all this talking I'm doing, was a danger to her. And so she was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah. Come with me. We're gonna go down the hall to the clinician." She was like, and she was just stunned. I said, "You have 4 CD4 cells per unit of blood that we tested. 4. And so the only danger in that clinic was everybody else to her. And so I showed the blood work to the doctor. She was like, "Oh, okay." No, we're not going to endanger you. We're going to get you on some medication. So that's what HIV does to this lady's. Luckily, she had not caught anything. She didn't caught any. She has not caught. She had not until she came to us caught in any type of infections. The only reason she came to see us was because she was in a relationship, and she figured she might as well, check off a box and get it done. And unfortunately for her, the person who she was in a relationship with failed to tell her that he had been positive for years. So that is what the virus. Sorry, no no flies in my house. That is what the virus does. It destroys your defense, and it makes you now susceptible to things that kids can shake off. It makes you susceptible to having colds for weeks when you should have just been able, your immune system should have just been able to deal with it and get rid of it in a few days. It makes you susceptible to pneumonia, strains of pneumonia that your immune system usually would be able to just deal with, and now you can't breathe. It makes you susceptible to skin infections. It's a terrible and yet brilliant disease. And here's the thing. When it first came out, and it was first named in 81?
I think in 81 it was still grids.
Maybe 82 or 83 then, before it got a
82,
name.
83, I think.
So I was like 8, 9 when it came out. And all you saw was this panic. Because there was this virus that was killing people, a certain type of people. No one knew what it was. No one knew what it was called. And all you knew was that your boy, who was 300 pounds 6 months ago, is now $1.25. And he's coughing. And he's got these lesions on his face and on his neck. Kaposi sarcoma. And so we developed a cocktail. And let's just be honest, it was basically poison. A series of
not basically, it was how much poison can I give you and you still stay alive?
It was because we're trying to kill off a virus that has nested itself in your immune system while trying to leave the other cells alone. That doesn't happen. And it had horrible side effects. It had horrible, AZT is what I'm talking about. It had horrible diarrhea. And
uncontrollable and explosive.
Thank you. I mean, just walking down the street and, and it was, and if you don't think diarrhea is bad, it is. We hospitalize people who have uncontrollable diarrhea.
Because people tend to think of just the waste part and but the dehydration effects that come with diarrhea, especially when you're already susceptible.
The dehydration, your metabolic state, what it does to your metabolism, the fact that you are crapping out all of the vitamins needed for cell growth and production and the maintenance of your homeostasis. You now have heart issues because you're shitting up, because you have this explosive diarrhea. It begets a lot of things. We hospitalize people who have severe diarrhea today. So these guys had it really bad. And then when it came out that one of the common factors in the people who had this unnamed virus, the majority of them were men who have sex with men. And so that created its own stigma. It was a terrible time for a certain class of us. It was a terrible, scary time for a certain class of us.
I remember white gay men and especially black gay men or black trans women. Mm-hmm. There's another story I want to tell later, but how the stigma literally leads to unnecessary death. But
it does. And the study of HIV in this country is not only a study of the virus, it is a study of the social fabric surrounding it. It's the study of what happened to us as a people because of it. And it's one of my favorite things to study because, as I said, DIS, where we operate in human behavior. That is human behavior. is human behavior. We had to have whole campaigns on how to not stigmatize. No, stop being a dick to someone who's dying. We had to have whole
Like
campaigns.
that was we had to invest a shit ton of money just to get people not to oppress the dying, the infirm.
Right.
Like,
And then, oh my
but
God.
are we going to talk about the righteousness of God's anger?
Thank you. Thank you. I was just about to bring that up. When I tell you the Bible thumpers
Woo.
came out, and I'm like, really? Because then you started seeing not everyone who is gay just don't have sex with the opposite sex. They just, maybe they could be bi. And so then you start seeing it growing in a heterosexual community. So today we have developed medications that did exactly what we asked it to do. The medications keep you aliver longer. Aliver longer. You hear me? It stops the virus from reproducing. Remember when I said the virus gets into the cell? There are certain class of drugs that prevent it from getting into the cell. And then I said, if it gets into the cell, it'll start to copy itself. There are drugs that prevent it from copying itself. And then if it does copy itself, there are drugs that prevent it from finishing the copy. So it's an incomplete virus and it doesn't replicate. There are drugs for that. There are drugs to prevent it from getting into your nucleus. We have a whole series of drugs now that prevent it from doing what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect is that you don't know who's sick.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you could pretty much tell that someone
got something. Let's make sure we clarify. I think that we need to make sure that we people understand the difference between being infected and sick.
Okay.
Because I think you're talking about you can't tell who's infected because the passage. But
correct.
That's the thing. And I want to make sure people know that it's not the sickness that gets, like the lady you were talking about before. She was not sick yet. She absolutely wasn't sick. And want to make sure that as we navigate through this space, we don't have people out there looking like, correct. Oh, you cool. You can tell Stacey ain't got it. She don't look sick. Like, oh, no.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That is it's so 100%. So once you get HIV, you'll go through some flu-like symptoms, maybe have some night sweats, unless you are tested often, regularly. You won't probably get sick for 10 years. That virus is taking its time. You're not doing nothing to stop it. It's taking its time. It's replicating. It is destroying every immune cell you put out. 10 years after you get infected, you start noticing that your colds won't go away. You don't feel so hot. And you go and take a test, and doctor's like, your HIV test is positive. And you're like, when did I get it? Could have been 3 months ago, could have been 10 years ago. But for this CD4 count, I'm thinking it was longer. At the point that your CD4 count dips below 200, you are now AIDS defined. And AIDS is acquired immune deficiency syndrome. It means that your body, excuse me for that. That's my date.
You're popular. You're popular.
It means that your body is going to have a hard time fighting infections, is what it means. And so I need people to understand the difference between, we're like, well, do you have AIDS or do you have HIV? It's the same virus. It just is. AIDS talks about your condition. HIV is
more like
infection.
The sick, right? That would be more like the sick.
Right. If you have, everyone who has AIDS has HIV, but everyone who has HIV does not have AIDS. Okay. So it just talks about your condition. They are the same virus. They're not two separate things. One talks about the condition of your body. The other one talks about if you have the virus itself. And so the drugs that we have developed make sure that the virus cannot do what it's supposed to do inside your body. And therefore, it's keeping you healthier longer.
So it sounds like you will always, let's say, until there's a cure, you will always have HIV, but it sounds like you can go back and forth between being AIDS defined and not.
Cannot. In this country,
Thank you.
once you are defined with AIDS, you are always AIDS defined. No
So
matter
so
how
if my CD4 count goes from 199 to 500,
you're still AIDS defined.
okay. I thank you for that, because
Yeah.
I always wondered about that one. I don't know
You're
why I didn't
still
know
AIDS
that, but I
defined.
always
Yeah.
wondered about it.
For the purposes of your doctor and your insurance, and you're still AIDS defined, and they're going to follow you to make sure that you stay, above a certain CD4, because it's important. Um, it is so important, and because we don't see the effects of HIV as we did in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
people are no longer afraid. And I don't want people to live in a state of fear, but because you don't see what it can actually do to your body, you're like, And I've had so many clients, and I'm like, you weren't alive to see what it actually does to your body, so you have no
Frame of reference.
and that's not just for patients, that's for doctors. How many
Oh,
doctors we've had?
woo! Go ahead, talk about it.
How many doctors we've had call the health department and say we don't know what this is, and I'm like, right, because you're 20. That's Kaposi sarcoma. Your patient has AIDS, and they're like, I guess we need to test them. You didn't test it. You called us and didn't test. Okay, it was just right, because you just got into med school, and by the time AIDS had a name and everything, you were just
Magic
in
Johnson
elementary
was the
school,
poster
right?
child, and it was cool to live with HIV/AIDS.
So and that's the thing. We've had a lot of doctors call us, and it's like, we don't know what this is. Of course you don't, because you weren't allowed to see it. So it's not just the lay people. It's not just everyday people in the public. It's also our medical professionals, because and we're continuing to do it. There are so many new modalities for treatment coming down and being tested now. I do want to point out that HIV is still a thing. We're still getting people testing newly positive for it. It is, and I have to put this with a grain of salt. It is, the testing is showing that our people of color, I'm sorry, I got something talking about MSM population, our men who have sex with men, are still getting it. Our Black men who have sex with men are more affected by it as far as the rate in this country. Our women of color are not, are still being infected by it, because not all men who have sex with men just have sex with men.
Right.
And straight men, heterosexual men who have sex with women, are still giving it to the women. So it's still a thing. The rate is higher among men who have sex with men, but it's still a thing. You still have to protect yourself. You still have to get tested, you and your partner, before you start sex and after you leave that relationship. And you have to be honest with your partner. Now, I have several clients that I personally had where one had HIV and one did not.
Yes.
The one who did not took a medication called PrEP.
Yes.
Pre-exposure prophylaxis. And they take a pill a day, and it reduces their chances of contracting HIV. With that being said, these couples still tell me that they're wearing condoms. Mind you, tell me, you don't tell everybody everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, are you wearing condoms? Yeah. And with oral sex? Tell the truth, shame the devil.
Mostly.
Tell the truth and shame the devil. I'll tell you right now, some of y'all don't have dental dams. Y'all don't even know where to get them, but it's okay. It's fine. But
we just use plastic wrap, but
lie.
not the aluminum foil.
Lie from the pits of hell, but it's okay. It's
Yo, don't knock plastic wrap in a clutch. Don't
in
knock
a clutch.
It. Not Ziploc though. It's not the same.
Don't do that.
Sensation.
Don't do that to that brand. We're gonna get banned. We're gonna get banned. That shirt will be coming out soon, people. We gonna get it. So yeah. I've had, patients where one had HIV and one did not. They were in love. They were going to stick through it. The person who was not infected was going to take their PrEP every day. They come in regularly. They get tested. They get their blood work to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be, and they go on about their business. That is what 30 plus years of HIV research has done. Yeah.
Yes,
And that's why people don't have the same reaction to it as someone our age would have, because we recall what it looked like when people were really sick and they literally wasted
the weight
their muscle mass wasted away, and there was nothing to them, and they couldn't breathe because their lungs were filled with fluid. And
the pneumonia. So let's we want to talk a little bit about, let me see if I can switch this off a little bit. There's a story that I was following when I was when I first started working in public health. I worked for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene and their AIDS administration. I was a senior policy analyst. And part of my job was to stay abreast of all of the news regarding HIV, AIDS, and make sure that information about it got shared appropriately with, our community stakeholders within the department. Because what we were finding is that, to your point, there were a lot of people who just didn't know certain things were happening, or how bad things were, or how good things were. There was some of the stigma because people thought it was just a death sentence. Like I'm comfortable that people will hear your story about people who are about the couples who still decide to be together when one of them has HIV, and it blows their mind. I know a couple that has had kids, and one of the partners is still HIV negative. And so this story hit me because there are so many levels of wrong in this story. This was like maybe 2009-ish. A guy had gotten back from prison, and he was in the community in one of the one of the abandoned houses, and there was a woman in the community, a deaf woman, who was a sex worker, a commercial sex worker, and that's how she was making her way in this community. He invited her, was receiving services, oral services, and another person walked in and was like, "Oh shit, she got the bug," talking about HIV. He took her into the backyard and shot her in her head.
Yeah, that part.
And it was and I was perturbed because there wasn't a lot of traction on the story. I found it because I was looking for it. And as I started sharing it, people were like, "Oh, damn, that's messed up." No. There's so much more than messed up. And in this, aside from so much more of the social commentary, I just want to talk about get your perspective on the clinical implications. Even if she did have HIV, because the interesting part, that one, it was never relevant, but it was also never discovered whether she had it or not. You know what I mean? So this rumor.
Wow.
In that situation, her performing oral sex on him, it is my understanding of the disease that even if she had it, she was in greater danger of an adverse medical reaction from him than he was from her. Am I
True.
wrong about that?
I think I'm trying to remember. There was one in my years at the health department, and we get all of the CDC information about what's going on with HIV across the country.
Yeah.
I only read one oral transmission of HIV. One. And I want to say that was because that person had a cut in their mouth. I mean, they were bleeding. You know what I mean? It was active blood. HIV doesn't like air too much. Your mouth is full of it. It's really, really, really difficult. One in my years at the health department of oral,
and I've let's never just be clear to get people to understand with that one statistic. In the numbers and the data that you've covered, you have covered millions of cases. There
And I
has been
look
millions
for
of
it.
cases
Yeah,
under
I look for
review.
that odd thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To see if it's a thing, and it's not. It's just not. Um, it's so hard to get HIV to someone through oral sex. Um, it's so extremely hard. One, and then we were all looking at it like, there's one. We have one. Yeah, this was murder.
Yeah.
This was pure and unadulterated murder, and we hear that a lot, such that the protocol in the health departments when you give someone HIV positive results, you have to sit there and assess whether they flipped or not. There were a couple times I wasn't sure about the mental status, the mental effects that my news had on them. And I was like, just give me a second, I'm gonna go and pull in someone. And it was our social worker, our crisis manager, because what I don't want is for you to go home and off somebody.
Right.
That was my
Especially because
concern.
that will not resolve anything. Let's be
Absolutely
very
not.
clear about that. It
Um,
once you are infected, that does not resolve.
it was also my issues when they first came out with the at-home test,
Oh yeah.
the OraQuick, and it was my concern as a professional about someone sitting at home in their room taking this test, and that test turns positive, and not understanding. No one reads what the rest of the test. No one reads what that test means. You know what I mean? It is an antibody test. It is an antibody test, and to go over how HIV is tested and diagnosed. The test that you take at home is an antibody test, and if you have contracted a virus, any type of infection, your body builds a defense on it.
Mm-hmm.
The test is looking for that defense. The problem is that until you get a blood test, that test is not exactly as specific as you would like. So let's say I'm doing a test and I'm looking for fruit, and I find all this fruit, but is that fruit an apple? Because I could have oranges, I could have grapes. I just asked for fruit. I asked, and wait a minute, and I asked for round fruit, but kiwis are round, grapes are round,
Oranges. I know oranges.
oranges are round. You know what I mean? So the test will give you an initial positive that tells you, please go get further testing. But nobody sees that. All they see is that it's positive. And I'm at home with this motherfucker that now I'm at home. This test is positive, and that motherfucker sitting out on my couch. I'm gonna bash him in his head. That was my concern.
And let's be clear, that is not a hyperbolic concern. That is literally has happened. And that's also, and the reason that I want to highlight these type of irrational responses is because this is what happens, or this is one of the reasons that people don't disclose. Like sometimes it is a legitimate concern for your safety. And I want people to understand, you could be hurt, you could be upset, you could feel betrayed or what have you. But that's a separate issue from let's make sure you are in a good place. Because here's the other thing you don't want. You don't want to end up in prison with HIV/AIDS. Because I used to be the budget analyst for the Department of
Try to
Safety
get
and Public
treatment
Safety.
there.
Huh?
Yeah. Try to get adequate treatment there.
And here's the thing, HIV meds are very specific. And I'll give the corrections department, they do the best that they can with medications like that. But here's the thing, if the prison is on lockdown, no one can move to get you your drugs that need to be delivered between this time and that time. So again, I need you to make sure there is space, and go to places like the health department. Do not lean to your own understanding. Trust somebody who studied this shit, because it's too big to guess.
So I think they've improved on those tests, but you still need to get a blood test. If you're at home and you take that test, great. I'm glad that you are being proactive and you are getting tested. But do not take that as your final word. Take that as a you may need to see a doctor, and go get a blood test, which will test for the antigen. And the antigen is a little protein on top of all bacteria and viruses. And that protein says HIV. And it looks for that protein. It looks for that antigen. That is the benefit of an antigen test. Okay.
I got a metaphor. Wait a minute. Tell me what you think about this, because I got stories. We broke down Thig and Thug last week. So here's my new story about how the HIV story. Okay. So in every drop of blood, there's like 400 to 800 commandos in there just waiting for something to pop off. They just sitting there waiting to it pop off. And there's always somebody trying to invade your cells. Yep. There's always some little, but they normally like little people like, I'm coming to get you. Now, with 400 of your dudes standing there, they're all dead. So, but what happens is HIV comes in and it's like a spot. It's like, it comes in, it's like, hey, I'm a soldier. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then one by one, like, yo, what happened to Dan? Right. I don't know. Exactly. And I don't even know. He was standing right next to me. And next thing you know, and then when most of them are gone, guess what happens? So now you fighting a war on two fronts. What was that game they had about us? Not about us. Where somebody was the person who did it, and they was red, blue, and green characters or whatever. See, you realize we in the same generation. That's why you don't know. I saw my kids playing. So they're undercover, and you're just trying to figure out who's killing your dudes because they dress like you, and you got these little dudes. Before you would just now they getting good shots off. It's like, whoa, how you get through? Because your numbers are devolving. And here's what it is. So when you take that initial at home test, it was like, yo, it looked like somebody been attacking your dudes. And it's like, oh, who was it? I don't know. I can't tell you that. Then you get the blood test. And the blood test is like the inspector general comes in and examines each soldier's like, oh, shit, exactly. You got some HIV in here.
Exactly. There's your Kaiser.
So can we make a cartoon out of this one? Because that I sound like I had fun just now.
You and your Titillating Tuesday cartoons. I can't. But it's HIV is, we have whole conferences on it. It is a whole subject when you talk about social, the medical, medication, affording the medication. Oh my God. The last STD conference the last HIV STD conference I went to, and it was in Atlanta. So good. It was so good. Dr. Fauci rocked it out.
Big up to Fauci.
Yeah, he rocked it out. It was amazing. But it made comment about, sorry, it's a 70-pound pit bull about to flip over my table. It makes a comment about how much these medications are here versus other places in the world. Yeah. All right, y'all keep not wanting, healthcare. Never mind. That's another subject.
It's a whole other subject.
It's another thing when you talk about HIV. But what we want to impress upon people on this show is to get tested. I don't care if he looks good. I don't care if she looks good. I don't care if she smells clean. That has absolutely nothing to do with what's floating around in their blood. If you are starting a relationship, before you decide to drop your panties, get tested. When you leave a relationship, get tested. So you know what happened during your relationship. You bookended it.
And that's, let's be clear. That's if you're in a monogamous relationship. If you have frequent partners, your testing should be a regular part of your routine. It
should be a regular thing.
So let's say, how often should, every 6 months?
For normal people, I say every 6 months. But for people who, this may be a job, they may have more partners because of economics, then you have to come in more often. And by more often, depending on how many partners you're floating, I've told some of my commercial sex workers, see you next month. Because your exposure to people is like that. And I'm sure we covered this when we talked about the economic impacts of commercial sex workers. But you have to protect your product. You have to wear your condoms. I'm sorry. You have to wear your condoms. You have to get to know your sex partner. In the case of commercial sex workers, that's not always the case, which means protecting you and your product is paramount. Because, like I said, no one looks ill anymore. No one looks ill. But you know what? They started. I want to make sure this is correct, but they started seeing more HIV signs and symptoms, AIDS signs and symptoms in clients, and I'm like, yeah, because no one believes HIV is a thing anymore, and so they haven't talked. They're not taking the meds. I was like, this is hilarious. You could not wait to give people medication when it first came out. Now that people don't know what it is and don't know the true impact of what this virus does in the body, you're like, no, this is not a cold, boo. This isn't the flu, even though the flu on its own is pretty deadly. But this ain't that. This isn't the sniffles.
But here's the thing: HIV will cause you to die from the sniffles, like that. That is the thing,
right?
It also makes you susceptible for all of the other STIs and all of the other diseases. And one of the things that I was really, when I learned this, it changed the game. Well, didn't really change my game, but it changed my messaging. I didn't know that if you get multiple sexually transmitted infections like gonorrhea, syphilis, herpes, it can make you more susceptible to HIV, which is bad, which is even worse because there's some people who get HIV the first time. There's some people who get it the 100th or 1,000th time. So in addition to not having any in addition to the problems that other STIs bring, they also reduce your natural defenses against HIV.
Damn sure doesn't help. But the viruses like herpes, which creates a break in the skin, syphilis, whose chancre, it's one of my favorite ones. Syphilis, whose first sign is a sore, a painless one at that, creates a break in the skin. And your skin is the largest organ on your body, and it is your first defense. Any breaks in it allows bacteria and viruses and whatever to get through. So those types of infections, if you have herpes and you have regular outbreaks, well, you have regular breaks in your defense. So yeah, you're more susceptible. If you have untreated syphilis and you get the chancre, which goes away, in a couple weeks, but then it's replaced by a rash. And if you start picking at the rash, you have a break in your defense. So yes, it all makes you more susceptible because HIV virus is found in body fluids. And once your body fluids comes in contact with your open skin, well, you've just opened the door. It also found in breast milk ladies. So we've had some HIV positive mamas give birth to HIV negative kids because they took their meds, but they still can't breastfeed. So they had to go on formula.
Wow.
Okay. So I don't want anyone who's out there and who's female and who's HIV positive, go to your doctor. You can have a baby, and that baby will be HIV negative, provided you stick to your medication regimen. And that medication will prevent the virus from crossing the placenta into your child.
Now, one of the things that has happened over the years is an acknowledgement and awareness of HIV. Let's add this to the screen. So what you see is that there are a number of, it's been 40 years, Stacey.
Yeah. Right. That's been 40. Yeah, because that would make, 40 years. Yep.
So what you,
almost 50.
So you get to, this is the CD website on HIV. The CDC website on HIV.gov. And I wanted to show you, there are a lot of awareness days. There's been a big effort to try to integrate HIV and throughout our society. Aging faith communities. Actually, it looks like the National Faith HIV AIDS Awareness Day is coming up on the 29th of this month. So please, your faith institutions, if you are a believer, find out what they're doing, and make sure that we know, because we're going to highlight stuff like that as we come through. But stay aware of these days, because it matters. Like HIV AIDS and Aging Awareness Day. I remember when I was working at the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, like that's the one that really blew me. I was like, wait, my mom does what? And to watch the rates, like, and not just HIV, but syphilis and gonorrhea, and to watch those go up in the, like, literally the address to the senior building. And so,
Like I said, Cialis and Viagra have done some wonderful things for people.
absolutely. And also some of the women empowerment, some of these women who spent their time growing up like quiet, and like, I wish now, like, hey, Mr. Earl, you need to come on down here once you finish with Mabel.
Give it up, Mr. Earl. I don't know what to tell you.
Or shit, sometimes it's, hey, Mabel.
Right. But it's not 1945 anymore. Like I said, there's other things to get other than the clap. And nobody thinks that grandma and granddaddy are still hitting it. Yeah, they are. And I approve it. It increases life. It gives off some great neurotransmitters are firing off. It gives off great hormone. What? I approve it. But you gotta be safe. And it's really, some people don't think that they need to talk to their older people about wearing a condom, or choosing between Earl and Billy over there, safely. No one thinks that they need to talk to them about that, but you do. Especially their doctors. The doctors don't test older people for HIV. They just don't, because they don't think that they're having sex. You don't even talk to them about it. And
some of that
has one patient, and he was in his 70s, and he tested positive for HIV. His doctor never brought up the subject of his sex life until he realized that he could not explain why this man was sick so often. And so he just threw the panel of blood tests at him. And when he came back, he was like, oh, what?
If you are sexually active, and I just noticed the time, if you are sexually active, I would strongly suggest that as part of your annual checkup, just add the STD panel. It is, worst case scenario, you have a disease that you find out about early that you can get treatment. Correct. Before you actually get sick, because it's a progression. And the thing is that while it may take the disease 10 years to start figuring out how to kill off your military easily, but once they get good at it, they move very, very quickly. And that becomes part of the issue. If you can stop them while they're still trying to learn how to kill your dudes, you may have a better chance of surviving and a better chance of living a higher quality of life. Exactly. Yo, babe, we're gonna have to start doing cartoons. We're gonna have a separate meeting on like a Thursday where we sit and do all the cartoons and shit like that, so we can earn. Because we have way too much fun for just one damn hour. I'm telling you that now.
I'm stunned that this hour went that fast. But then again, you got me on my subject, so.
Oh yeah. So wait, what is the next one? What is the next one for us to talk about? I forgot. Like, I know HIV. Yes, we're into syphilis, aren't we?
Syphilis.
All right, so next week we're gonna be on syphilis. Well, that I need to find a new way to say that. Jesus.
Syphilis.
You know what? I'm gonna need you not to get so excited about. You know what? Fuck, it's Titillating Tuesday. Get excited about that syphilis, girl.
I enjoy teaching people about that. I didn't even care. I enjoy teaching people about syphilis. What?
All right, cool. And the gang, thank you so much. I will see you next week. Right?
Oh my Lord. I just thought of something.
What?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to you offline about that one.
Okay. All right. See, y'all see how we do. All right, baby. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, so y'all got an opportunity to get titillated with us. Y'all saw what happened? Y'all got educated today. Oh my God. Like, I so appreciate the wealth of knowledge that Stacey brings, not just from the academic perspective, because she clearly demonstrates that she has studied the subject, but she's also able to really help us understand the practical applications of it, how these things affect real people in real life, and if we don't treat them like they're real, then all our solutions are fake. Oh, did you see what I did there? I think is that bars? All right, I will be black tomorrow.